Let's start in the Northern Territory, where the Country Liberal Party and Lia Finocchiaro are celebrating a landslide victory over Labor and Chief Minister Eva Lawler. Finocchiaro labelled the win a turning point for the future of the Northern Territory in her victory speech.
This result represents a turning point in the Territory's future. Territorians have used their voice to stand up against Labor, who have taken them for granted for far too long. Territorians have stood up against nearly 2 decades of escalating crime, an economy going backwards, and the erosion of our once iconic lifestyle.
Now, the win means that the CLP will hold at least 15 seats in the 25-seat parliament, while Labor has been reduced to just 4 seats. And independents hold 2 so far. Federal Deputy Opposition Leader Susan Lee hailed the result as an indictment on the federal government.
Make no mistake, Andrew, there are implications for Anthony Albanese in this result, because this was not just an indictment on Eva Lawler, Natasha Files and the Territory Labor team, but also on Prime Minister Anthony Albanese for leaving the people of the Territory behind.
Kel, is she right?
Yes, absolutely. Look, I know the big issues were youth crime, which is huge there, and we will talk about tonight. And I know the economy has been a problem for them in the Northern Territory and so on. All of that is true, and all of that played a big part. But I'm going to tell you, I think the voice played a part. I know it sounds a bit weird because it was a while ago, but the Northern Territory, along with the rest of Australia, apart from the ACT, which is actually not part of Australia, let's be honest, voted overwhelmingly against the voice. I think it's done more damage to Anthony Albanese's brand than we might have recognised. That 60-40 vote said, this is where Australia stands. We're not interested in identity politics. We're not interested in a whole bunch of things that you've staked your claim on as a leader of Australia. And I think the damage is much bigger than we've allowed for so far. I know everyone says, look at what's happening in the polls, and it looks like Albanese will come back with the minority government next time. I think it could end up being quite different and much bigger than that because of the ongoing damage the voice has done to the brand.
Joe, you were part of the Yes campaign.
That was part of the problem, that's right. Yeah, I was part of that damage. Thank you very much.
Every week.
Do you
agree with that?
I think the Voice campaign, obviously, as I lamented at the time and very quickly afterwards, was appallingly run. But I don't think it had anything to do really with the result. It obviously didn't help, but I think it is the crime, it is the perception. If the Voice has anything to do with it, it's that this was the focus of the government on Indigenous affairs instead of this huge sort of dysfunction that we saw literally exploding in Alice Springs. I think there is definitely a lesson for the government. In fact, my column tomorrow is that there is a lesson in this for the government, and that is the left has a sort of tendency to sort of turn its nose up at law and order issues, to sort of say, oh, that's just what, dumb right-wing shock jocks or tabloid newspapers or knuckle-dragger racists think is a problem. And that, I can absolutely guarantee you, is a one-way ticket to opposition. And you can ask the Northern Territory government, or former Northern Territory government now,
and Queensland,
about that. Queensland's about to go as well. There's massive issues in Victoria as well. There's a story in the Sunday Herald Sun today about businesses in Melbourne, right in the heart of the CBD, not being able to find staff to work after 6 p.m. because it is so violent and they are so scared from drink and drugs and all that stuff. So again, what do all these 3 things have in common? They are all run in the dying days of a left-wing Labor government. And I do not think that is a coincidence, because you only have to look at South Australia and New South Wales, where the problems do not seem to be as acute, where you've got fresh new Labor right governments in play. And to give you an idea of how significant the result of the Northern Territory is, firstly, up until 2001, there had never ever been a Labor government in the Northern Territory. Since 2001, there has only been a CLP government for 1 term. So Labor has held power every single time. Now, 2 terms ago, the CLP had 2 seats, right? Then they got to about 7, or I think then they've doubled it at this election. Now, that is an astonishing turnaround, and that shows you, for people to change their minds so quickly and turn so severely, shows you how quickly it's done. And what did this coincide with? Well, surprise, surprise, it coincided with Michael Gunner from the Northern Territory right resigning, not sorting out a succession plan, and then they've had a couple of left-wing chief ministers replace him. Clearly weren't able to to seize the initiative on crime, clearly weren't able or willing or prepared to go as hard as they needed to win over the electorate. And the result of that is the Chief Minister has not just lost the election, she has lost her seat as well. So it is an absolute carnage. This is a bloodbath, and if, I'm sure Stephen Miles will be looking at it, because he too sort of turned his nose up at, complaints about crime in regional Queensland and said, oh no, it's actually fine. Look, we've got the stats. Oh, it's not so bad. Oh, what are you talking about? And now, of course, is bending over backwards to throw everything at it. He's going to be wiped out. Jacinta Allen, if a functional opposition can emerge in Victoria in the next 2.5 years, she will be in a lot of trouble as well. And again, but where the Labor left is not in charge in New South Wales and South Australia, things seem to be running pretty tickety-boo. So make of that what you will.